We're going to talk about the BTB2 and, you know, how to properly do your bending and installation so that when you get into the field and start welding it, you know, it's just much easier to use and install. You don't have to do all the bending and installation inside of the furnace. Actually, quite the contrary. You can do it outside of the furnace and get a way better finished product than doing it in kind in the furnace. So come with me, I'm gonna show you like how we would probably do this outside of the furnace to make your lives easier inside the furnace for welding. So this is gonna be our setup today. We're going to mimic as if we were going to install this on a 3-inch tube inside of a OTSG furnace or whatever it is that you're going to install it to. So with the BTB2, we've aimed to make this as easy as an install as possible. And that includes etching what needs to be done with the sensor. We've even put an X on where the junction is and what's getting welded. You know, you've got your BTB, your junction, and then your MI cable. And today, we're gonna focus on routing the MI cable properly so that we don't have premature failures. 90% of the failures come from failure of the MI cable, not routing properly. The boiler tubes are the coolest part of your furnace. They will protect your MI cable from damage. So use it to your advantage. And what we wanna do is we wanna get this MI cable touching the tube at all times while trying to mitigate any kind of flame impingement that you might get from the flame within the furnace. This sensor is not that straight right now, so I might get this just to hold it in place. We don't want to go like super hard on this. You don't need to squeeze this to the pipe. You just need it to hold it in place. So once you weld the BTB, if you're using a shroud, you're gonna put the shroud right here. And then we need, you know, about 4 to 6 inches from the shroud in order to give you enough movement between the shroud so that you don't have any binding moments with clips or whatever. Then the next step, again, no two benders. All you really need is you need your finger and make your first bend, right? You're always gonna make this bend kind of away from you because this next part is super critical. So we need this cable to touch the tube at all times. So we're going to use leverage and we're going to bend it. Now the reason why I do this on the outside, you can imagine if you had tube, this is where you gotta get stuck and this is where it gets messy. But because we have a tube on a pipe stand, we can rotate the tube. And you can continue to make your bend around nice and contoured to the pipe. Knowing that we want to land 180 degrees from where the BTB is, we can take this, and there you go. Keeping that bend as tight as humanly possible. The last final step in all of this is now to get the cable going back in the direction that we wanted to go to the exit of the furnace. One thing I want to make sure that is, you know, super important, this bend will spring back on you. You can give it a couple hits with these hammers. These blunt hammers are great for MI cable because it'll actually suck the cable right to the tube. So there are no air gaps in this very critical bend where we're coming from radiant hot side down to the cool side of the pipe. You cannot achieve this style of bend inside the furnace because you'll never be able to rotate the tube and hit it where you need it to go, right? If I need to adjust here, well then I make my adjustment here, right? But eventually, one thing you're gonna want to do is you're gonna figure out your expansion. And it doesn't have to be much, but a simple S-bend in that sort of configuration might do us just enough to give us the proper expansion that we need and also, you know, allow the cable to move. And if you feel so inclined, you could give it a couple hits. Kind of like that. This is the new BTB2 shroud. It's gonna be a lot smaller than your typical shroud. You wanna make sure that you land the junction, which is here, in the middle of the shroud. So that'd be, you wanna situate it about there. So you would place that on there, and then you would weld that to the tube. 1 inch seams is fine. You could do a full fillet weld all the way around the shroud, totally acceptable. In convection sections, you may elect to not use the shroud. Shroud, no shroud, it doesn't really, you know, it would be a preference at this point. Engineered shrouds do produce more accurate embedded temperature readings than no shroud. The BTB2 is a natural evolution of a good product made great, and that is the Aircom way.